Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Sumera Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Desha Tarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadara Srivasadi Gauravakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 8th canto, chapter 12. Mohini Murti bewilders Lord Shiva. Text 35. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada.
Cităm Srimad Bhagavatam 11. Anayasta Mohini Murti învăță Lord Shiva în scrisă.
Skandaretasi sopashyat
Skandaretasi sopashyat
Atmanam deva mayaya
Atmanam deva mayaya
Jadikritam nripa shreshta
Jadikritam nripa shreshta
Sanyavartata kashmalat
Sanyavartata kashmalat
Skandaretasi sopashyat
Skandaretasi sopashyat
Atmanam deva mayaya
Atmanam deva mayaya
Jadikritam nripa shreshta
Jadikritam nripa shreshta
Sanyavartata kashmalat
Sanyavartata kashmalat
Skandaretasi sopashyat
Skandaretasi sopashyat
Atmanam deva mayaya
Atmanam deva mayaya
Jadikritam nripa shreshta
Jadikritam nripa shreshta
Sanyavartata kashmalat
Sanyavartata kashmalat
Skane when fully discharged. Retasi the semen. Saha Lord Shiva. Apashyat saw. Atmanam his own self. Deva Mayaya by the Maya of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Jadikritam had become victimized as a fool. Nripa Shrestha, O best of kings, Maharaj Parikshit. Sanyavartata restrained himself further. Kashmalat from illusion. Translation. O Maharaj Parikshit, best of kings, when Lord Shiva had fully discharged semen, he could see how he himself had been victimized by the illusion created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus he restrained himself from any further Maya.
О Махараджи Парикшит, най-добър от сърце. Когато Бог Шива напълно изхвърлил семето си, той мога да види как е станал жертва на илюзията, създадена от върховната божествена личност. Така той се въздържал от по-нататъчна Мая.
Purport. Once one is agitated by lusty desires upon seeing a woman, those desires increase more and more. But when semen is discharged in the act of sex, the lusty desires diminish.
Когато човек е възбуден от поход, когато види жена, тези желания нарастват още и още. Когато семето се изхвърли в акта на секса, тогава похота намалява.
The same principle acted upon Lord Shiva.
Същия принцип действа и върху Бог Шива.
He was allured by the beautiful woman Mohini Murti, but when his semen had been fully discharged, he came to his senses and realized how he had been victimized as soon as he saw the woman in the forest.
Когато той бил превъзстен от красивата жена Мохини Мурти, той изхвърлил семето си, избушил на себе си и разбрал как е бил станал жертва, веднага що видял жената в гората.
If one is trained to protect his semen by observing celibacy, naturally he is not attracted by the beauty of a woman.
Ако човек е обучен да защитава и въздържа своето семе, като следва обет на въздържание, то естествено не е привлечен от красотата на жена.
If one can remain a brahmachari, he saves himself so much trouble in material existence.
Ако човек може да остане брамачари, той се спасява от много проблеми в материалното същество.
Material existence means enjoying the pleasure of sexual intercourse.
Материално съществуване означава наслаждението на удоволствието от сексуалния акт.
Yan maitunadi griyamedi sukham. If one is educated about sex life and is trained to protect his semen, he is saved from the danger of material existence.
Ако човек е образован относно сексуалния живот и обучен да удържа своето семе и да защитава семето си, той е спасен от опасността на материалното съществуване.
So we'll continue with this uncomfortable topic.
Продължаваме с тази неудобна тема.
Yes, it is. For everybody is uncomfortable.
За всички е неудобно.
Because it touches on the most intimate part of our consciousness. And as we can see here, and it is explained, and we should understand, this is, for whatever reason, the basic principle of material existence. Yes, we may also not like that. Why couldn't Krishna have arranged it in a different way? As we generally say, we want to have paradise without God. So we want to enjoy life, but without any consequence. So somehow or other, this is not possible in the material world. And yes, the reason is relatively simple if we understand the philosophy. We are not material entities. It's difficult to understand because we are very much identified with the body we have. And although we have heard it thousands of times, you are not the body, you are spirit soul. It's still a mystery. But the whole Vedic system is meant to not only make this understandable, but also to, channel life in such a way that one becomes free from material bondage.
Цялата ведическа система е предназначена да ни помогне да разберем тази истина и не само това да ни помогне да уредим живота си по такъв начин, че да се освободим от материалното същество.
Therefore, actually the whole Vedic system, the whole Vedic civilization, if you analyze it, is based on, controlling or at least, yes, to channel it, that was the word, to put it in certain channels, all the desires we have that come with the body.
Цялата ведическа система е насочена към това да канализира и да насочва желанията, които имаме в тялото.
Like we have this verse in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Както има стих в 11-та песен на Шримад.
Loke vyavayamisha madhya seva nitya hi jantur nahi tatra chodana, which means that, and Prabhupada quotes it many times, and we'll see later a purport where he quotes this.
Този стих е цитиран Шрила Прабхупада често и ще прочетем коментар, където той го цитира.
That in the material world, the conditioned soul is naturally inclined toward sex, meat eating, and intoxication.
Че в материалния свят човешкото същество или живото същество е склонно или има привличане към секс, месоядство и алкохол.
Therefore, religious scriptures never actually encourage such activities.
И затова религиозните писания всъщност никога не окуражават тези дейности.
Although the scriptural injunctions provide for sex through sacred marriage,
Макар че сексът е разрешен в бракът според писанията,
for meat eating through sacrificial offerings,
а за месоядството чрез жертвоприношения,
and for intoxication through the acceptance of ritual cups of wine.
а за опиянението и пияняващи средства за приемане на вино, което е също използвано в жертвоприношения.
So such ceremonies are meant for the ultimate purpose of renunciation.
Тези церемонии са предназначени в крайна сметка да доведат до отречение.
Regulated was the word I was looking for. These activities in Vedic society are regulated. Yeah. They're not like unrestricted, which is the tendency today. Because Vedic civilization had been all over the world in thousands of years ago. And these religious principles are present in all, you could say, spiritual traditions. But the tendency, and because Kali Yuga is progressing, is to just reject them. People think we are advancing, and therefore all these old rules and regulations and prohibitions, they're just remnants of some culture we don't really agree with anymore.
Ние си мислим, че напредваме в тази цивилизация и затова всички тези правила, ограничения от старите, считаме за някаква стара култура, за която не ни грижа вече.
So in Vedic civilization, Srila Prabhupada mentions that in one purport, it was organized in such a way that even during the day, generally, even husband and wife would not see each other. So the residential quarters were within the house, like a protected, and outside the men would live. So actually the whole system was to how to reduce the attraction to material life. Therefore also, if we look at the 4 stages that human being goes through, brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyas, only one ashram allows for, in this case we're talking about, a sexual connection.
И затова виждаме, че в 4-те подразделения ашрамите само един позволява сексуални взаимоотношения.
And according to this, because it's just general guidelines and it's not in every single case the same, but the life is divided in these 4 parts and each part is 25 years. Just to give an idea how it should be organized.
И като цяло да придобием представа, се казва, че около 25 години човек трябва да прекара всеки един от тези ашрами.
So from 0 to 25, brahmachari ashram, the baby has no problem, but when the male baby becomes an adolescent and gets into puberty, then sexual desires naturally awaken.
От 0 до 25 ашрамът на брамачари, децата нямат проблема, когато момчето влезе в юношеска възраст, тогава се появяват сексуални желания.
But the idea is, and that's the training, that from age, like Prahlad Maharaj says, Kaumaram Acharet Pragyo, when they are in the school age, 5 to 6, they go to a Gurukula, the place of the spiritual master.
Идеята е, че от възраст, както казва Пралад Махарадж, Калмара на 5-6 години, когато отидат на училище, да бъдат в училището на Гуру.
So then they are trained up to 25, that means a quarter of their life, to be brahmachari.
И там те са обучени, това е на четвърт от живота, как да бъдат брамачари.
So, let me see, I have a purport here. Yes, in Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada speaks about this briefly in 8th chapter, text 11. He said, in the Vedic system of knowledge, students from the very beginning are taught to vibrate Om and learn of the ultimate impersonal Brahman by living with the spiritual master in complete celibacy.
В ведическата система на образование учениците се обучават да повтарят свещената сричка Ом и медитират върху Брахман, като спазват стриктно обет за безбрачие.
In this way, they realize two of Brahman's features.
И така те осъзнават две от аспектите на Брахман.
So this practice is very essential for the student's advancement in spiritual life.
Тази практика е изключително важна за напредъка в живота на учениците.
But at the moment, nowadays, such brahmachari, unmarried celibate life is not at all possible.
В днешно време такъв живот на брамачари, на ученичество без контакт с противоположни напълно невъзможно.
The social construction of the world has changed so much
Социалната система в света се е променила толкова,
that there's no possibility of one's practicing celibacy from the beginning of student life.
че не е възможно човек да практикува целибат от началото на ученическия си живот.
And in that context he also mentions, and he was, well, saying that it was not very recommendable, so-called co-education.
Прабхупада казва в тази връзка, че не е препоръчително така нареченото смесено образование.
That also did not happen until, I think, end of the 60s, beginning of the 70s. Normally, the boys and the girls were in different schools.
Това не се случва дори в миналия век до около края на 60-70-те години. Преди това момчета и момичета са били в отделни училища.
But then co-education became the new way of, teaching.
Но след това постепенно е ставало съвместното смесено образование като новия метод на образование.
I remember that. Yes, I mean, it's practical experience in life.
Това е практически опит.
So, and I remember the first time I really fell in love.
Дори си спомням първият път, когато
I must have been 10 years old or maybe 11 years old. And it happened because in the co-education, then we had to practice some dancing together.
И това се случи, защото в тази система на смесено образование трябваше да танцуваме заедно.
It was cultural, of course. It was presented as a cultural event.
Разбира се, това беше представено като културно събитие.
But then you are paired.
След това ти имаш партньорка.
And this whole dancing, you can see how it is designed to somehow make contact.
И този танц по някакъв начин е така измислен, че да има контакт.
So I had this partner, another small girl, 10 years old, and there we were, touching and then doing some dancing, and naturally you become attracted. And that's what people want. And this is the goal. In Vedic civilization, just the opposite. keep them separate as much as possible. And in the ignorant Western civilization, they think, well, this is it. So why not get them together as soon as possible?
Цивилизацията на Запад, невежество си мисли, това е целта, нека да ги свържим колко може по-рано.
And then in the 60s, must have been, because then we were 15, 16, and then we instituted, and it was called dancing.
И след това, през 60-те, когато аз бях на 15-16, това беше също институционализирано така този танц.
It's what, once a week, the big aula, you have this word? The big hall where all the students normally gather when there's some function or something. It was converted into a discotheque.
Всяка седмица голямата аула или залата, в която се събират хората, се превръщаше в дискотека.
This word didn't exist in those days.
Тогава не съществуваше тази дума.
So it was right at the beginning, and it was the beginning of the rock and roll, rock culture. So we had always live bands in our age.
Това беше началото на рок-културата и ние винаги имахме групи, които свиреха на живо.
They were up there playing all the songs that were just coming out. I Can't Get No Satisfaction, for example. Oh, I Want to Hold Your Hand. And there we were. Actually, from all there were the gymnasiums of all from the city. Whoever could, they could all go to that place. And it was going from one school to the next, alternating. So we all come together, maybe hundreds of boys and girls, and it was dancing time. So this has completely changed the social structure since Vedic times. So throughout the world, there are many institutions for different departments of knowledge, but there's no recognized institution where students can be educated in the brahmachari principles. Just the opposite. Unless one practices celibacy, advancement in spiritual life is very difficult. That's very uncomfortable for many of us. Because who is practicing celibacy? Not very easy at all. The whole atmosphere is just the opposite. And people who try to do this, they are either ridiculed, or one concludes because of experience that it's all fake. Nobody can really be a brahmachari or a celibate. It's impossible. These are all hypocrites. And therefore, in the Catholic Church, the big push is let the priests get married, otherwise they do it in secret. Oh, they go for the small boys behind the altar. Which happens because they're celibate. They can't be seen with a woman, so boys is okay, apparently. So this is very difficult. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya has announced, according to the scriptural injunctions for this age of Kali, that in this age no process of realizing the Supreme is possible except for chanting of the holy names. Yeah, so now Shiva, he finally, because it's a cycle, so he was agitated, and then it comes to the climatic point, and then after that it's like it goes down again, so he became sober.
И виждаме какво се случило с Шива. Той е бил възбуден и накрая достига до климакса и после изпада.
And then we will see how he, as it was said, if we go back to the word for word, that he now apashyat atmanam, he could see his own self.
И ако видим дума по дума превода, там пише, че той отново могъл да види себе си.
He became like the fog dissipated.
Сякаш мъглата се дигнала.
Or in some other part, I think fifth canto, it's compared to a whirlwind.
Или на друго място в пета песен се сравнява с...
Right? It's like, how is it exactly? The wind or the sandstorm that you become disorientated.
В пета песен това се сравнява с така вихрушка, която ти обърка сетивата.
It can act like a hurricane or tornado. Or in French, they use coup de foudre. It's like a lightning that hits you. You go like this. Yeah, so there's different ways of explaining that kind of situation that Shiva found himself in. Yeah, you lose all discrimination. You lose yourself. You lose, how you say? Huh? Common sense, any sense, except for one.
Изгубваме всяка способност за разграничителна и здрав разум, всякакъв разум.
They have some very blunt expressions we can repeat because it's really funny, you know, that your brain goes into your pants.
Има най-различни такива груби изрази, които може да използваме, те са графични. Мозъкът ти слиза в гаща.
So this happens. I mean, it's and this is happening. When is this? Is also millions of years ago, I guess. So this is the whole point. It can happen to anybody, even to the most exalted personalities, and it's not really a question of even Kali Yuga. It can even in Satya Yuga or any yuga it can happen in the material world.
Това може да се случи дори на най-възвишените личности и по всяко време. Не е въпрос дори на Кали Юга. Може на всяка епоха и по всяко време.
So therefore we find so many warnings in the scripture about this.
И затова писанията ни дават най-различни предупреждават по най-различен начин.
Here Srila Prabhupada quotes Yanmai Tunadi Kriyamedi Sukham Hi Tuchcham. It's from Prahlad Maharaj's prayers. Yes. He had, this is 45, in 43, he had said to Nrsingadev, Naivod Vijay Dura Virachaya Vaitaranyas, that actually this material world is a very dangerous place, but I'm quite all right. Despite this fact.
В 45-ти текст той казва Майто Нади Михане и Сукам, а в 43-ти казва, че Нрсинхадев всъщност този материален свят е много опасен, но аз съм окей.
And why? Because Tvadvirya Gayana Mahamrita Magna Chitta, my mind, my consciousness is absorbed in the nectar of the glories, your glories. Maha Amrita. It's not just ordinary nectar, it's a great ocean of nectar. But Shosheta Tovi Mukachetasa in the Riyarta, I'm aggrieved when I see all these people completely in illusion. In the Riyarta, Maya Sukhaya, Udvahato Bharam Vimudham, right? So the Maya, they are completely captivated by this so-called happiness in the material world, and they're carrying the heavy load of making so many plans and trying to get this.
Те са напълно запленени от тая илюзорна идея за щастие и носят тежкия товар от усилията и плановете, за да го постигнат.
And then in the next verse he laments that many of these so-called sages and yogis, they don't care for them. They just completely concentrate on their own liberation.
И следващия текст той също съжалява, че тези йоги и светци не ги е грижа за падналите души, защото са съсредоточени върху тяхното спасение.
And then he comes to this verse, which was quoted, that these foolish people who are trying for temporary happiness, the main point is Yan Maitunadi Viryamedi Sukham.
И след това той казва този стих, в който обяснява, че тези глупави хора са привлечени главно от това щастие Майтунади.
And he says that this situation of Maituna Adi, of sex, is compared to the rubbing of two hands to relieve an itch.
И той казва, че това удоволствие от секса е сравнявано с търкането на ръцете, за да човек да премахне сърбеж.
And those who are married and they have no spiritual knowledge, Kriyamedis, they think that this is the greatest happiness.
И жените, които нямат духовно знание, си мислят, че това е най-голямото щастие.
And they don't realize that actually so much distress is coming from this.
И те не могат да осъзнаят, че това причинява толкова и води след себе си най-различни страдания.
Therefore they are called kripanas, or foolish people who are not even satisfied by repeated sense enjoyment.
Затова те са наречени крипана или неинтелигентни хора, които не са удовлетворени дори от повторно сетивно наслаждение.
So Prabhupada in the purport explains that in the material world, materialists think that this is the greatest happiness.
И Прабхупад обяснява, че в материалния свят материалистите мислят, това е най-голямото щастие.
And therefore we see, especially in the Western world, there are regular arrangements to satisfy sex in so many different ways.
И затова в западния свят може да бъде видяно, че има най-различни възможности да бъдат задоволявани тези сексуални желания по най-различни начини.
When he was in Paris, he heard, or he observed maybe, there were so many clubs in the city.
В Париж той чул или може би видял, че има много клубове в града.
And probably the devotees told him that generally old men go there. And they pay a lot of money just to be in the club and see some young naked girls. And this is very common. And then he speaks about the hippies, that they have given up materialistic comforts of their fathers and grandfathers, but they cannot give up the sensational happiness of sex. Well, actually it became a main ingredient of the so-called liberation of the 60s. 1967 was coined the Summer of Love. The Summer of Sex. So if you go to San Francisco, wear a flower in your hair. Very famous song which condensed the whole atmosphere of these years. So then you will find so many like-minded people, and everybody loves each other, and you can live together, 20 together in one place, and you just mingle freely, no repression.
да имате да разбълга връзки.
In Germany, we had a very famous commune number 1 in Berlin.
В Германия има известна общност такава в Берлин.
And the main female girl, Uschi Obermeier, was famous all over the world, practically speaking. She was very young, very beautiful, and anyway, so if you want to look up, you can still see. Now she's an old lady. Uschi Obermeier.
Uschi Obermeier.
Yes. I know, I remember. Everybody wanted to be with her. But she already was involved with the commune people of commune number 1, which were students. You know, they were all a little older than us, so no way to get there.
Тя вече била ангажирана с много студенти, които живели в тази общност, по-възрастни от нас, и ние нямахме достъп.
And the main guy is also still alive. You can see a picture. Same style, you know, hair like this, huge hair, and just becoming an old man. But the mentality is the same. They still believe this is the way.
Главният мъж също е жив още, същия стил носи на дълги коси и въпреки че са стари, те си мислят, това е начинът.
I mean, it was scandalous, and now all these pictures come back to my mind, you know. You know, in late 60s, so there were these photographs of them having a big joint. It was taken a photo. I mean, this is a scandal, you know, this is forbidden. And half naked and smiling and being very happy. So that's sensational, as Prabhupada says.
През 60-те, когато имаше снимки на тях полуголи с пушейки марихуана, което е недавно.
So it looks like, wow, this is it, huh? This is now finally we found the way.
Това изглеждаш като, вау, наистина открихме най-после начин.
And in the same time, in Denmark, they constituted this, not just a commune, it was a whole part of the city was taken over by the hippies, Christiania. And it had its own flag, its own rules, police don't go there anymore, and it's still existing. And the same people, now old, are still there. There's no problem with drugs. Police don't go there. They know this is just leave them alone, and you can do whatever you want. So, Prabhupada says such persons are described here as kripanas, misers. Yes. And we are shocked. Why is that? They are the most open and all-embracing people, and you call them kripanas, misers?
Как може да наричаме най-отворените и най-щедри хора щедърници?
No, because the human form of life is a great asset.
Защото човешката форма е много ценна.
Because in this life one can fulfill the goal of existence.
Защото в тази форма човек може да изпълни целта на съществуване.
Unfortunately, however, because of a lack of education and culture, people are victimized by the false happiness of sex.
Но за нещастие, понеже хората са лишени от истинско образование и култура, те са станали жертва на илюзорното щастие на секс.
So, and then on top of that, it really doesn't work out as one thinks. I mean, yes, as I say, you know, we really don't like this, but this is a fact. It's dukkha dukkham, or kripana bahu dukkha bhaja. It's the source of so much distress. Either there's like still today, although we have all these advancements of, what do you call it? I know the German word. Avoiding pregnancy. We have all these different, so many ways you can do it.
Birth control.
Birth control, that's right.
Има днешно време толкова начини толкова противозачатъчни.
So you want to control birth, but as Krishna points out, Janma is one of the dukkhas. It's one of the miseries, principal miseries of material existence.
Искаме да контролираме раждането, но както Кришна казва, че раждането е един от основните проблеми в материалното същество.
And actually, in many ways, we want to avoid it.
И по много начини искаме да го избегнем.
So you have all the tools, but still there are 50 million unwanted pregnancies every year in the world. 50 million.
Всички инструменти са налични, но въпреки това има 50 милиона нежелани бременности всяка година.
And so much suffering comes from that.
И от това произвежда толкова страдания.
Because many of those, the father just walks away.
Защото много от тези случаи бащата просто се отива.
Then the female is left with the pregnancy, and either you terminate it, then that's not good, or you have it, and that's not good.
И момичето остава с бременно и тя или трябва да убие ембриона, което не е добре, или да го роди сама.
In most cases, of course, very young.
В много случаи те са много млади.
Sometimes still in school.
Понякога дори още в училище.
As they say, when children get children, become, they're having children, or children having children.
Децата имат деца.
So, but why? Because it's just impossible to control.
Защо? Защото невъзможно да се владее.
Otherwise, people who are older and then they cannot control, as I mentioned the other day, and we have a whole list of examples, they jeopardize their reputation.
Или пък хората, които са по-възрастни, както спомнях този ден, те пък поставят на карта своята репутация.
And they know what I'm doing is wrong.
Знаят, правят нещо, което е погрешно.
If I'm caught, I'm going to be in trouble.
Ако ме хванат, ще има проблем.
But I cannot avoid it.
Но не мога да го избегна.
So then you have to step down from being a minister or from some whatever it may be, even a president. You may be a president of a country, and then they impeach you.
Трябва да си напуснете поста си на министър и дори ако сте президент, може да започне процес за
Yes. And although you just got away with it,
и тъкмо сякаш ще се отървали.
the reputation is ruined.
Но репутацията ви вече
And your wife is struggling on deciding what to do. Continue or walk out.
Бори да реши какво да направи, да продължи или пък да се тръгне.
And then she becomes the good wife. She stays.
И става добрата жена и остава.
And others either ridicule her or look down on her.
И другите или се присмиват или не одобряват.
So therefore Vedic civilization has a completely different angle of vision.
Ведическата цивилизация има съвсем различна гледна точка.
How to bring this down, not increase the fever.
Как да намали температурата, не да увеличи.
So, Brahmacharya is the first 25 years. We were stuck there. We haven't gone further yet. So after 25, then the brahmachari can decide whether he wants to remain a brahmachari or he can get married.
Както започнахме да обясняваме, във Варнашна брахмачария е 25 години, след това брахмачария може да реши дали остане така или да се ожени.
And then if he gets married, then for 25 years he can enjoy family life.
И ако реши да се ожени за 25 години, може да се наслаждава на семейен живот.
And then he is 50. So when he is 50, normally, then it's time to retire, to go to the forest.
И след това на 50 нормално е да се оттегли и отиде в гората.
Panchavardam, Vanang Brajet. That's the general. So it may take a little longer, even Srila Prabhupada took sannyas at 63 and retired 50 something.
Това общия случай може да отнеме малко повече време, Шрила Прабхупада е приемал саньяс на 63 и напуснал семейството на 55.
So but then normally vanaprastha, and you can remain with the wife still, we explained that.
Така след 50 е обикновено това. Ванапраста, както обясних, мъжът може да остане със съпругата си.
And the final stage for those who have Brahminical qualities, inclination, then it's complete separation.
И последният етап за тези, които имат планински качества и склонностите има пълна раздяла.
So basically out of the three, there's no sex.
На практика от тези 4 етапа в трите няма секс.
Not in brahmacharya, not in vanaprastha, not in sannyas.
Нито в брамачария, нито в ванапрастха, нито в саньяс.
So only for 25 years, that's a license.
И позволение само през тези 25 години.
And of course, nowadays it's just the opposite.
Разбира се, днешно време е точно обратно.
Everybody's encouraged to start as early as possible
Всички са окуражавани да започнат колкото може по-рано.
and to continue as long as possible
И да продължат доколкото е възможно.
until the last breath.
До последния ден.
And if you can do that, you are a hero.
И ако може да го направиш, си герой.
Everybody envies you.
Всички те завиждат.
Everybody wants to be a Hugh Hefner.
Всички искат да се хилхевна.
You're 86 and you still have bunnies jumping all over the place.
Ти си 86, но още зайчета скачат около теб.
And of course, he's very proud. Look at me. I can still do it.
Разбира се, той се гордее. Вижте ме, аз още мога да го правя.
I may need Viagra, but who doesn't?
Може да имам Viagra, кой няма?
And I only have 2 each night, not 12 as in the past.
И всяка
So, you know,
имам само по 2, а не по 12, както в
I know it's going down, but I keep it up. I keep it up.
Знам, че намалявам, но все пак поддържам, продължавам.
And we think this is the goal of life.
И ние си мислим, това е целта на живота.
Because otherwise, life is becoming useless.
Иначе живота става безмислен.
Yeah. This is how people think.
Така мислят хората.
So, it's very difficult to say something different.
Много трудно да кажем нещо различно от обратното.
We are crazy. Therefore, they think we are crazy.
Затова си мислят хората, че сме луди.
This is how the material world is. What is night for the sage is daytime for the foolish people, and vice versa.
Това е материалният свят. Това, което е нощ за мудреца, за глупавите хора е ден и обратно.
So, Shiva has given us the example. Be very careful.
Шива ни дава този пример да бъдем много внимателни.
Because otherwise, nobody can resist.
Иначе никой не може да устои.
Okay, as so far we have gotten. Any doubts
Съмнения
or comments from personal experience?
коментари.
And all think of your first love. At what age did it happen?
Първата любов, коя възраст стана?
You don't remember. It must be so long ago. That's a good sign. Any other volunteer? Don't be embarrassed. I said, at 10, 11, so if it's earlier, it's not unusual. If it's a little later, that's more normal. But nothing happened actually. I hadn't continued the story. I fell in love, but she was not interested. So that was suffering. I mean, you cannot imagine. I still remember this. This is like 60 years ago almost. And I still remember how much I was suffering. And people all over the world, it happens. You try to have a relationship and the other person is not interested. This is horrible.
Още си спомням, това беше преди 60 години. Много ясно си спомням чувството. Аз се влюбих на 10-11 години, но партньорката и момичето нямаше никакъв интерес. Това е ужасно, да имаме желание от срещната страна да няма интерес.
I mean, some people, they actually commit suicide.
Някои хора се самоубиват заради това.
Yeah, I cannot live without you.
Не могат да живеят без теб.
And then life is useless.
Тогава живота е безмислен.
Jump out of the window,
Скачат по прозореца.
take poison.
Приемат отрова.
So if I would have been brahmachari, I could have avoided, as the Prophet says, so much trouble.
Но ако бях брамачар, ще да избегнете толкова неприятности.
So, anything? Yes. And brahmacharini, we didn't talk about that. It doesn't really exist, but it's possible also. But it's not a Vedic concept. Actually, in Vedic civilization, all the ladies get married.
Не говорим за брамачарини, защото в етническата култура това не съществува, но е възможно в ведическата култура всички жени са.
But if it's not possible, then we have the term brahmacharini. It was invented practically. But I mean, single women are not normal in Vedic civilization. But if it happens, actually, it's very good also if you can do it. But it's very rare.
Това го нямало в ведическата култура, но все пак съществува. Прабхупада използва думата брамачарини, т.е. възможно е, ако някой може да го направи много хубаво, но много рядко.
Thank you for the lecture. Yesterday you mentioned in the lecture about Shakuntala, who was born after this interfair.
Vishwamitra.
Yeah. And I just remember her example and the story with the voice when also you mentioned in the lecture about pregnancy and recognizing and acceptance. What to do in this age of Kali when the ladies, we have examples like Savitri, for instance, and Shakuntala, and we have high belief that we have to follow the highest ideals regarding loving relationship, but this very easy disappear when we face the reality.
Yes. So therefore we have to hear as much as possible.
Как можем да следваме този висши идеал, който виждаме в примерите в ведическата литература, но се сблъскаме с реалността в тази епоха. Ще говоря, че ние трябва да слушаме колкото възможно повече.
Tendency is to forget.
И тенденцията е да забравяме.
And especially in the, how you say, the presence of, how we would call it, allurement. No?
Особено когато има
temptation.
възможности за...
Yeah, therefore, even brahmacharis, for example, they were in an ashram. They had no contact. So this contact, this is one of the biggest problems, how to at least minimize or basically avoid it.
И контактът е проблемът, затова е идеята да бъде минимизиран, да бъде избягван.
Like even in this example of Shiva, and this is the beginning, he said, I want to see. Now if Mohini Murti of Vishnu would have not converted himself and appeared as Mohini Murti, all this wouldn't have happened. Same goes for Ajamil.
Същото нещо и случая с Аджамил.
You know the story. He was a very qualified, pure, Brahminical youth.
Той бил брамана, млад и много квалифициран.
And just by seeing this couple of Shudras in the forest, he became agitated.
Просто като видял тази двойка шудри в гората се е възбудил.
And this is what happened. But this is what today those who are behind the media, that's what they are pushing. For all people to see tempting, alluring things of all kinds, not just sex type, anything, so that we become drawn in and then you cannot avoid to get it. Somehow they make arrangements to get this, whatever it may be.
Всякакви обекти на изкушение и привличане ни са представени в медиите и хората, които стоят, затова те сега насочено го планират по всякакъв начин да ни привлекат и да ни погълнат вниманието.
Therefore, yogis go to the forest or into a cave. That's the reason. They want to avoid contact with the world. Now, we don't want to really avoid contact with the world, and therefore it's a very not easy situation at all. So what can save us is to not forget. So therefore Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, every day we should hear, we should read Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and be reminded about the reality.
Затова ежедневно нитям Бхагавата Сева трябва да слушаме, да четем Бхагават Гита, Шримад Бхагаватам и така да си спомняме каква е реалността.
If we don't do that, then even if we do it, we tend to forget. So what to speak if you don't do it?
Когато го правим, имаме склонност да забравяме какво говорим, когато не го правим.
If we don't, like here it was mentioned, brahmacharya is practically impossible. So therefore chanting is the main activity for spiritual practice.
Както чухме, брамачария е на практика невъзможно в Кали Юга, затова главната практика е мантруването.
So serious chanting, hearing, this is the main, you could say, protective device or armor or what is it? The wall we can construct somehow or other.
Най-силното оръжие, стена и защита е сериозното мантруване слушане.
So, but again, if we have a female body, things are a little more difficult generally.
В общия случай женското тяло е много по-проблематично.
Because as it is explained, and we also know this, if we are honest, we can admit, the propensity to enjoy material life, material objects, is generally a little more than in the male body. Isn't it?
The male?
No, the female has a more propensity.
Защото това е описано, и ако сме честни, ще си признаем, в женското тяло има малко повече склонност за наслаждение на удобство.
So that's a whole complete different lecture.
Но това е съвсем различна лекция.
I've given it in other places in Spain, but yes, this is the truth. I mean, and therefore, men also cannot resist. Because it's all designed like this, we have to understand.
Аз съм дал тази лекция в Испания. Това е истината. Така е, всичко е било направено. Това е планът, дизайнът. Мъжете не могат да устоят.
Yes, Krishna has designed the female form because he wants to enjoy, and in order to be enjoyable, that form has to be very much into enjoyment also. Anyway, it's just giving you a hint.
Кришна иска да се наслаждава, и за да се наслаждава трябва да е създал тази форма, която също трябва да е привлечена от нас.
It is the highest enjoyment, but not in the material, even in the material world, but the result is so much different. That's the whole thing.
Най-висшето наслаждение, но не в материалния свят. Тоест, той е и в материалния свят, но резултатът е напълно различен.
Yes. So the gopis, yes, they dress themselves very beautifully. They want to be as beautiful as possible, but not for themselves, for Krishna. So in this world also, why women are dressing very attractively and painting themselves in so many different ways, just to be attractive, but not for Krishna.
Сега също жените се обличат, украсяват, рисуват по най-различни начини. Защо? За да са привлекателни, но не за Кришна.
And then we want them to be as beautiful as possible also, because we want to be attracted. That's men tendency.
Тенденцията, склонността на мъжете също да искаме жените да са привлекателни, защото искаме да сме привлечени.
You look at these couples, prominent couples. They're very proud when they have this very beautiful lady next to them. Either married or not, doesn't matter nowadays.
Може да видим тези известни личности, които много се гордеят да имат привлекателна жена до тях, дали са жени или не, друг въпрос. Няма значение.
Even the president, he is maybe 20 years older, but because he's a very powerful man, he got this Miss, the most beautiful woman of the country, he got as his wife finally, and he very proudly shows her around.
Дори президентът, макар че с 20 години по-стар, е успял, понеже е могъщ мъж, да има тази красива жена за негова жена и той се гордее да я показва на себе.
So, I don't know. Now I forgot the question. If it's not answered, repeat it quickly.
Just shortly was how to interfere with this idea, who is not easy to follow in Kali Yuga. we have hard ideals from Savitri, for instance,
Yes.
and we face the reality, which is
Well, that's, I hope I answered. We have to try to remember, because otherwise we forget our ideal.
Имаме тези висши идеали, но сме сблъсквани с реалността сега и как може да го съвместим. Ами да, трябва да помним, да слушаме отново за тези идеали.
But actually the first step is we should understand the ideal and recognize it as an ideal.
Но първата стъпка е да разберем и да разпознаем идеал като такъв.
And the really problematic is if we hear about all this and we are not really convinced that this is a fact.
Истински проблем е, ако чуем всичко това и не го приемем за истина.
This is your opinion, or Krishna may say this, but he said it's my opinion, so it's his opinion. I have a different opinion. He sometimes says this is my opinion. Okay, so many people have so many opinions. Krishna has his opinion, but I have my opinion. Yeah, he may say, don't stay here, come back to me. I say, I think about it. I'm not convinced yet. I want to see the three worlds before I decide. So, no, we have to become convinced. If we are convinced, even though we sometimes may fail, but still we are not losing the sight of the ideal. Like here we will see now, Shiva, he became bewildered for some time, but now he, like you could say, woke up. And he sees things as they are. And he doesn't ask Vishnu again to, why don't you manifest another form like that, maybe with black hair instead of blonde hair and blue eyes, and this way or that way, because variety is the spice of life. Mohini Murti is okay, but you have something more to show? No, one time was enough. He learned his lesson, and he will go back to his business. So we may, have some hiccup with Maya, but then we should go back to our business. It's not unusual to fall, but you have to get up. Don't stay down. Anyway, was some opinion. My opinion. Or the same person?
No, another one.
Another one. Female or male?
Male.
Okay.
Харибо, в днешно време има тенденция за еко-общности в световен мащаб. Може ли да се каже, че е по-добре от хипарските общности от предните времена?
In the present time, there is a tendency for creating eco-communities.
Okay. Do it. It's really needed.
And in a worldwide.
Okay.
And can we say that this is better than the hippie communities?
Well, it depends how many naked ladies are jumping around in that community.
Зависи в тези общности колко голи момичета
This was happening. You read biographies. How when Prabhupada went to the Morning Star Ranch, just reread that again, 1967. As I said, Summer of Love, huh? So some of those who later became sannyasis, they were running around naked. Living like monkeys on a tree, as we heard also. They are renunciates, monkeys. They only eat fruit. They don't have a house. So, but they have 24 of females going with them. and each one has a lot of little babies, you know.
Всяки
So,
от тях има много бебе.
but there's the big monkey, and he's a, what is it, Markata Vairagya, no?
Аз
The
наричам
renunciation of the monkey.
маймунско отречение.
No house, only fruits, but lots of female companions.
Без къща, само плодове, но и много жени.
So nice eco village, everything paka, bio, vegan, but many, lady friends.
Така че, ако общността е много хубава с еко, био и здравословно, но ако има много жени,
But
приятелки,
real eco means you have to have cows, huh?
но истинското еко общност означава трябва да има и крави,
And cows that give milk.
които дават мляко.
So that's the basis of real civilization.
Това е основата на истинската цивилизация.
Otherwise you go to the vegan planet.
Иначе отиваме в веганската
Not Goloka, that's the planet of the cows.
не го ловим, която е планета на кравите.
And you cannot have Krishna as butter thief because that's against your religion, so you need Krishna as a green guy, not a blue guy.
Не може да е синото момче, което краде масло, да е зелен, защото това е срещу религията.
But otherwise, this is what we need, nowadays more than ever, communities that actually can live from the land and the cows and not depend on supermarkets and online shops.
Но наистина това е, от което имаме нужда. Повече от всичко нужда в днешно време. Общности, които могат да живеят, като се издържат от земята и кравите, а не от супермаркетите и онлайн.
Yeah, we have to pray every day that this continues, because if it stops, we're not eating tomorrow.
Трябва да продължим да се молим, защото ако нямаме тези възможност, може да няма какво да едем утре.
Yes, but very precarious situation.
Много опасна ситуация.
So eco, or even non-eco, village is good.
Еко, село, това е добре и така общност.
I mean, land and cows, that's the basics for just living, surviving.
Основата на оцеляването по естествен начин е земята и кравите.
Because we have to eat every day.
Защото всеки ден трябва да се яде.
We don't have to have internet access every day, but we have to eat every day.
Нямаме нужда от интернет всеки ден, но трябва да ядем.
But nowadays, if we don't have internet access, it's worse than not eating.
Но в днешно време, ако нямаме интернет, се по-лошо, отколкото да няма какво да ядем.
Anyway, so yes, of course.
Да, разбира се.
I know. Is this answered, or did I miss the question getting off to the Morning Star Ranch?
Отговорих ли на въпроса или се отклоних към темата за утренната зора?
It's okay. Okay. Anything else? I think it's getting late again.
Нещо друго?
So we stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Sri Sri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Hare Krishna.
Изходен с Бхакти Гора Вани Госвами ки